statement. He said, Christ didn't mind the crucifixion, really. He was more concerned. Again, here's the statement, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. He wasn't attached to his body. He was more concerned by these people that were missing the greatest opportunity of his life. His ministry could have extended many more decades, and he could have helped many more thousands of people. But he was crucified. But he didn't mind it that much because he knew that these people on that level of their understanding just could not handle his power, the power of his love. And so they had to do away with him. And it goes on and on like that as we see history repeated so often, even here in India with Gandhiji. Well, Independence Day, Saturday. And I always enjoy reflecting, because we've been in India now for some time, that we really do have a joint karma, as Yogananda himself pointed out. There's a feedback. Okay, now it's stopped. As Yogananda said, in time, uh, uh, India and America would lead the world. America with its efficiency, India, of course, with its spirituality. And how interesting it is that both of us fought valiantly with great loss of life to get the English out because they didn't belong. And I find it just endlessly fascinating that there's many things now that are happening between India and America. And truly, one of my favorite hobbies is to ask, Indians, what's going on, and invariably with their lives, and invariably their grandkids are in Chicago, and like Neelam, and off to go visit, and they're going to go soon to see how their son is doing, and they're at a college on the East Coast, and it just goes on and on and on and on, and invariably they can't wait to get back to India, where they feel this very, very powerful and precious spiritual vibration. And Yogananda, too, very interestingly, very much revered and honored both Mahatma Gandhi and George Washington, our own first president of America. And there at Lake Shrine, as some of you seated in this room went and saw, there's Gandhiji's ashes there at Lake Shrine in a very prominent place on the property for people to draw inspiration. And when Roma and I and others went to go visit Mount Vernon, where George Washington lived himself hundreds of years ago, I guess I wasn't surprised, but nevertheless, it was just fabulous. The vibration was strong. There, overlooking the river where his large house was, I believe it's the Potomac. I sat down, there were a number of chairs there, and quite a lot to see. But I was just drawn to just sit for a few minutes. And I went into deep meditation. And Yogananda said that George Washington was a mystical man. And when he was there, when Yogananda was there to visit then the home, he brought a wreath of flowers to lay at the gravesite of George Washington. And I thought, very, very sweet that really in the new era of India, Mahatma Gandhi and many other freedom fighters led the way, deeply spiritual souls. And there it was George Washington who was willing to risk his life and do anything and everything he could to win the freedom, because he felt it was the divine birthright. That was what was intended. And so these great ones that come into this world, we need them. We must have them. We have to have them because they show us the way, because they have either they're fully awake as the great saints are, or they demonstrate through their life and through their seva, especially through their vibration, a true greatness that we think, I want to do what I can to better my life, Remember, as Yogananda's most advanced woman disciple said, when asked toward the end of her life, where she had had tremendous suffering, if you could do your life over again, what would you do? What a simple statement she made. More and better. That was it. More and better. I thought that's great for all of us, because in that way we respect and appreciate what we've achieved through God's grace and self-effort, this particular place where we are. But more and better is needed. More and better the next moment. More and better as we continue to grow through the years spiritually. And as we're able to hold on to the feet of the Guru, as we're able to do all that we can spiritually, we find that our life, as Yogananda described for disciples that were beginning to soar in God, it's an unbroken inspiration, an unbroken inspiration. We right now are content to some extent with broken inspiration, which means inspiration from time to time. And we thank God every time it comes. It may be in the form of a good thought. It may be in the form of an opening of the heart. It may be in the form of a beautiful experience. But without question, it's inspiration. And as we become more aware and awake, we know it's from God. There's no mistaking that. But what are we wanting? We're wanting unbroken inspiration. Unbroken inspiration. Perhaps you remember this episode in Yogananda's life, quite something, where he was challenged. Again, the gurus are always challenging us. So the disciple challenged the guru, can you draw inspiration at will? And he said, yes, take down this poem. And it's one of the beautiful poems in Whispers from Eternity about doors opening everywhere. And very interestingly, as Swamiji liked to point out from time to time, some years later, someone wanted to quote, I believe, as a journalist, his beautiful book, Whispers from Eternity. And he said, I can't help it, but this particular poem, I really want to share. And what was it? It was that one poem that Yogananda seemingly drew right out of the ether, right out of his bliss state, doors everywhere. You look at the flowers, you look at the sky, those are all doorways, they're all windows to the infinite. And the more we can open up to that, the more we find that really this life is beautiful. Yes, it's a dim carbon copy, as Yogananda said, of the astral world, and that can be a little discouraging because we've come from the astral world. We shuttled back and forth so many times. If we were to remember all the incarnations, we would be dizzy. So we've had that experience many a time, and we know that. And the astral world, the heavenly regions, inspire us to do beautiful things, whether it's internally or externally, whatever it might be, to make this world a more beautiful place. And so for us, when we think of these occasions like Independence Day, really what we need to do is to think of our own independence and how, as we become more independent, how we can help others begin to be independent too. Because that's what it's all about. If we think about our own inspiration, our own liberation, at one point, I think this is true pretty much across the board, at one point you hit a wall. There's just not enough there. And then we begin to think in terms of deepening our seva. And then all of a sudden, there's this great enlivening of our spirit, because we think, yes, of course we want to be free. No question about that. But as we expand and begin to think of others, expanding the natural sympathies of the heart, then we say, okay, now I'm not missing the point. Now I'm beginning to get what life is all about. Because we come down here, remember when Swami Kriyananda was crossing the bus, he had just read the autobiography of a yogi on the East Coast of New York, and he heard that there was, read I should say, in the book, that there was an ashram there. And he imagined just a little seaside ashram in Sanitas. He didn't think about anything else. That was his thought. There was his guru. And as he was going across the country night after night, quite a journey it was, especially back in the 40s, all he could think about was he wanted God, and he wanted to share God with others. And that stamped onto his life, onto his consciousness, his mission. And that's what he did. Yogananda said to him, you must work very hard, because Divine Mother will bless you very much. And he said he was so thrilled by those words. I believe it was during an all-day Christmas meditation, an annual event there at Mount Washington, Los Angeles, that he wasn't able to meditate as deeply as he would like, because he thought, oh my gosh, I've been given a clue. I've been given a clue. If I will work, as Yogananda said, this is a path of intense activity. If I will work diligently in doing all that I can, then Divine Mother will bless me very much. And he was already receiving such blessings at that point in his life that he said to one of his fellow monks, if this is all that I achieve this lifetime, this joy, he said, I would be totally satisfied. And thankfully there was much more. And toward the end of his life, it was hard for him to speak of God without breaking down and crying, because his love, the love in his heart was so full. And so for us, it's fun to read these funny stories about these silly things, these episodes that have happened and will continue to happen, because after all, this is all God's Leela. And when we think of them, we think, amazing how divine and human the great masters are. It's really, really quite astounding, because it's a challenge for them to be in this world too. As Yogananda said, when I see it's time to incarnate, and I see what personality I'm needing to put on, he says it's like a hot coat on a hot day, but I get used to it. I get used to it. As we are trying to climb to their heights, they're doing all that they can to see what they can do to reach down to help us, because they're omnipresent. They're filled with bliss. Why do they come down? They come down because of the ache in their heart, which is colossal, to give to us what they have. And so to spend more time, I was talking with a friend the other day on the telephone, and she's in a very, very demanding chapter of her life, raising an infant and all of these various things, and working the night shift, and on it went. And I thought to myself, good for you. You're reaching out now with these tremendous demands, with her relatives saying, what are you doing? You're so young. You're not supposed to see God until you're 60. And I thought, oh my God, I've heard that in so many different forms. Don't be chasing God so quickly. What are you doing? Live your life. Get a life, man. It's like, well, wait a minute. That's not exactly what I feel in my heart. I feel this grace, whatever my age, young, middle-aged, senior, it matters not. This is the inspiration I feel. Let me go for it. Let me go for it. This is what I want in my life. I yearn for God. I yearn for this joy. And this yearning has come from God. It's been planted in our hearts by God and the great ones. And so again, happy Independence Day. We celebrate that, again, interestingly, in America, it's in July. In India, here, it's in August. Again, a month apart. I don't think any coincidence there. So we celebrate Independence Day every year to have some fun and be with friends and all those things. But let us not forget the deep, deep calling of these special times during the calendar year, where really God is saying, come home. Come home. It's time to come home. Here's another clue for you, Independence Day. Do you want your independence this lifetime? You can have it. The saints have come to give you independence. Do you want it? You'll have to work for it, but there'll be much help and much grace along the way, as we will know. As Yogananda said, long before we find God, there'll be all these blessings coming. And if that wasn't the case, I don't know how many people would seek God. It would be just too hard if God was constantly just hammering us with his tests day after day, week after week. It would be hard. But of course, it's not that. Yes, the testing is required to open our hearts and open our minds and purify us. But there's much grace because God loves us. And God loves us through the testing, and God loves us through the challenges. God loves us every moment of the day. Never is his love withdrawn. God bless you.